You walk into a local festival and your senses are just instantly hijacked.
Oh, completely. It's sensory overload.
Right. It's like you've got the blinding neon of a Ferris wheel spinning against the night sky, and then that overwhelming scent of powdered sugar on a funnel cake.
Don't forget the deep-fried everything.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
deep-fried butter on a stick. And there's always the chaotic blast of a brass band cutting through a crowd.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is. And on the surface, I mean, it feels like pure, unadulterated entertainment. Just a fun Friday night, right?
Right. Just a way to kill some time.
But what if, beneath that deep-fried, neon-lit exterior, you are actually walking through a highly sophisticated 250-year-old biological hard drive?
See, that framing completely changes the stakes of a local fair for me.
Right.
Because those sights and those smells and the sound, and they aren't just passing amusements, they are encoded data.
They are data. And deciphering that data is the exact premise of the expansive new book we're looking at for this deep dive. It's called America at 250, Folk Festivals of the United States by Professor Dr. Milton Biswas.
It's a fantastic read.
It really is. And our mission today is to prove to you that the local festivals you attend aren't just excuses to eat junk food and buy, like, weird crafts.
Yeah, they're so much more than that.
They are actually living archives. Like, they are democratic acts of memory-making that define the American identity.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Dr. Biswas makes the argument that festivals are the pulsating lifeblood of community identity.
Yeah.
They function as the very spaces where community decides what is worth saving.
What's fascinating here is the anthropological premise the book lays out right at the start. Festivals essentially operate as arenas of boundary making and social cohesion.
Right, which sounds very academic, but it plays out in such a real way. Exactly. Think about it. For centuries, marginalized communities have routinely found their histories excluded from official textbooks or, physical government monuments.
Because they didn't have the power to build the statues or write the curriculum.
Precisely. So they utilized the only public square available to them, which was the street or the fairground.
The festival itself becomes the monument.
Yes. It operates as a living, breathing mechanism where marginalized histories demand their right to exist in the public sphere.
I want you to think about the last local fair or parade you went to.
Yeah.
Because I promise you, by the end of this deep dive, you will never look at a street fair or a food stall or like a passing float the exact same way again.
No, it completely rewires how you see them.
It really does.
Oh.
So if we're looking at these festivals as living archives, we have to understand the mechanics of how communities use them to literally survive cultural erasure.
Right.
And the indigenous powwow is just a masterclass in this kind of preservation.
Oh, absolutely. The historical context of the powwow reveals a really profound manifestation of spiritual resilience.
Because they weren't always what we see today, right?
Yeah, not at all. Originally, these gatherings were really complex hubs for intertribal diplomacy, trade, and spiritual renewal. But during the colonial era and stretching well into the 20th century, government policies actively sought to outlaw traditional spiritual practices.
They literally banned them.
Yeah, they did. So to survive this systemic suppression, the powwow had to adapt its form.
And this is where that biological hard drive analogy really takes shape for me. Because if a colonial force is constantly trying to wipe your hardware clean,
Banning the language, burning records.
exactly, forbidding ceremonies, you need a storage system that cannot be easily confiscated by the government.
Right. You can't put it in a book if the book is going to be burned.
So the human body in the communal gathering become the hardware. Take the drum circle, for instance. It is doing so much more than just keeping a musical tempo.
It's the core of the entire operating system.
Right. In indigenous cosmologies, it represents the heartbeat of the earth. But mechanically, it physically synchronizes the heart rates of the dancers. It's wild.
It acts as an operating system for the community.
And the concept of time in that circle isn't linear. It's not like a ticking clock moving away from the past. It's cyclical.
Which serves as a brilliant counter-narrative to Western concepts of, linear progress.
Right. The idea that we just keep moving forward and leaving things behind.
Exactly. When time is cyclical, the ancestors are not relegated to the past. They are actively present in the circle with you in that moment.
It gives me chills just thinking about it.
Yeah, and to your point about the biological hard drive, the regalia worn during these dances functions as the visual code.
It's never just a costume.
Never. It is an intricate, readable text.
The Ojibwe women's jingle dress dance illustrates this perfectly, I think.
Oh, that's a beautiful example.
Because it's a dance specifically engineered for healing and protection. And mechanically, the dress is adorned with rows of metal cones.
Right, traditionally made from rolled-up snuff lids.
Yeah. And as the dancer moves, those cones strike each other. And that specific rhythmic jingling sound is literally designed as a living prayer.
Just radiating outward into the community.
Exactly. When you watch that, you are witnessing epistemic sovereignty.
That's a great term for it.
It's a community maintaining absolute control over its own knowledge systems, encoded in a format that outlasts government suppression.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we observe this exact same mechanism of transmuting historical trauma into a celebratory archive within African American history, too.
Oh, you mean through Juneteenth?
Yeah, specifically through Juneteenth, yeah.
For anyone who might only know Juneteenth as a relatively new federal holiday, the timeline here is crucial.
The timeline is everything.
Right. It traces back to June 19th, 1865, in Galveston, Texas.
When Union General Gordon Granger arrived to announce the enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation.
But the Emancipation Proclamation had been issued on January 1st, 1863.
Exactly. The sheer chronological delay is the catalyst for the entire festival. Enslaved people in Texas were denied the reality of abolition for 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Yeah, therefore, the celebration that erupted on that June day was never just a simple cheer for the end of an institution.
It was way heavier than that.
It was a complex psychological testament to enduring that agonizing, deliberate delay.
And this brings us back to the mechanics of the archive. Because Juneteenth festivals are heavily coded with specific symbols, particularly the colors red, black, and green.
Right, the Pan-African colors.
But the culinary code is what really caught my attention in the book.
Oh, the food is deeply encoded.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a massive emphasis on red foods, like red velvet cake, red soda, strawberry pie. And Dr. Biswas explains that this isn't arbitrary.
Not at all.
The red is widely known to symbolize the bloodshed by enslaved ancestors. But there is a deeper mechanical link to West African culinary traditions.
The transatlantic translation of ingredients is just remarkable here.
I found this part so fascinating.
Because in West Africa, items like kola nuts and hibiscus were historically used to create red teas and drinks for ceremonial offerings.
Right.
But upon enduring the Middle Passage and finding themselves in the American South, enslaved people were entirely cut off from those specific botanical ingredients.
So they innovated.
They had to.
They substituted with the ingredients they could access, maintaining the sacred red hue of those ancestral ceremonies while creating completely new culinary staples.
It's an encrypted culinary memory.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that capacity for transformation really is the core thesis of these gatherings.
Yeah, because both the powwow and Juneteenth require participants to hold two seemingly opposing realities at once.
Right, grief and joy.
They demand solemn, painful remembrance while simultaneously generating exuberant, joyous celebration.
And that synthesis creates a communal healing mechanism that a textbook simply cannot replicate.
No, you have to feel it.
So if these festivals were crucial for spiritual survival and, like safeguarding data, it stands to reason they were equally responsible for physical survival.
Oh, absolutely.
Because long before a neon midway existed, isolated frontier populations needed a way to physically stay alive. Which leads us to the agrarian roots of the festival.
Labor, land, and livestock.
Exactly. The geography of early America kind of forced this evolution, didn't it?
It did. European settlers were scattered across harsh, really isolated frontiers. Market days were not born out of a desire to party.
Nobody had time to party.
No, it was a sheer logistical necessity. You had to travel to a central location before the frost set in to trade surplus grain for metal tools or livestock for textiles, just to survive the impending winter.
But the inevitable sociological result of putting hundreds of isolated people in a field to trade cows is that eventually someone is going to bring a fiddle.
Human nature insists upon it.
It really does. So those utilitarian market days rapidly evolved into seasonal town fairs.
And Dr. Biswas highlights a crucial civic mechanism here, which I loved. These early fairs effectively prototyped American democratic self-governance.
Because there was no local government yet.
Right. When you have farmers, vendors, and townspeople converging in one place, they suddenly have to negotiate property boundaries.
They have to figure out fair pricing models.
And police their own behavior. They were actively practicing civic responsibility and mutual aid long before formal municipal structures existed.
Which naturally evolved into the modern agricultural county and state fairs we see today.
Yes.
The livestock shows remain the beating heart of these events. And diving into the mechanics of youth organizations like 4-H and the Future Farmers of America, the FFA.
It's so intense.
It is incredibly eye-opening. We tend to think of it as just, A kid walking a cow in a circle.
Right, wearing a nice white shirt.
Yeah. But these livestock rings function as highly complex classrooms without walls.
The curriculum is rigorous.
Whoa.
Young people spend months, often years, managing feed conversion rates, studying animal genetics, keeping meticulous financial logs.
It's basically a small business.
It is, and the judges in those rings are not merely looking at the aesthetic size of a pig. They are validating sustainable husbandry practices.
So it's a profound intergenerational transfer of knowledge.
Exactly, one that directly ties the community's future food security to their festival culture.
Okay. I am going to push back here, though, or at least play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
When I go to a county fair today, yes, the livestock barns are there. They're usually tucked in the back. But to get to them, I have to walk past a mile of neon carnival rides, aggressive corporate sponsorship banners, and vendors selling deep-fried butter on a stick.
The infamous Midway.
Right. Doesn't that heavily commercialized spectacle completely dilute the noble agrarian heritage we're talking about? Or are we supposed to view the carnival midway as just the newest layer of the folk tradition?
It creates a massive tension, undeniably.
It feels like two different worlds.
It does. However, the book frames this not as a dilution, but as a necessary symbiotic duality.
Symbiotic.
Yeah. The modern fair has to balance solemn agricultural homage with massive commercial entertainment because it operates as a seasonal economic ecosystem.
The money has to come from somewhere.
Exactly. The sheer influx of capital from the Midway, the grandstand concerts, the thrill seekers, that is frequently the only thing keeping these rural agricultural communities financially and socially afloat amid rapid urbanization.
So the deep-fried butter essentially subsidizes the preservation of the heritage.
It pays for the livestock barns to stay open.
Okay, that economic reality makes total sense. And because these fairs became such vital economic hubs, they acted as magnets.
Right, they drew everyone in.
They became the rare physical locations where isolated, diverse populations like European immigrants, formerly enslaved African Americans, indigenous peoples, were actually forced to interact.
And that's where the magic happens.
Here's what gets really interesting. That inevitable cultural collision birthed an absolute alchemy of sound and taste.
Southern festivals serve as the perfect laboratory to observe this mechanism in action.
Yes, Louisiana's Creole communities in particular.
They offer a masterclass in how cultural synthesis occurs not by erasure, but by overlay.
Let's look at the mechanics of Zydeco music.
Oh, I love Zydeco.
It is a completely unique hybrid sound that could only have been engineered at this specific regional crossroads.
Because you start with the accordion.
Right, an instrument brought over by European immigrants, specifically the French and Germans, who used it for polkas and waltzes.
Very structured, traditional European music.
But in Louisiana, it gets paired with the washboard, the frottoir.
Which traces its rhythmic lineage directly back to African and Afro-Caribbean traditions.
And you end up with a European melodic structure riding on top of a driving, highly syncopated African beat.
It's incredible. And that resulting sonic hybrid becomes the inescapable soundtrack to Mardi Gras.
Which operates as the ultimate template for cultural alchemy, really.
Definitely. Mardi Gras has its roots in French Catholicism.
It functioned as the last massive indulgent feast before the austerity and fasting of Lent.
But once that European Catholic template landed in New Orleans, it was aggressively reshaped by African and indigenous masquerade traditions.
And the organizational structure of Mardi Gras, the cruise, demonstrates how public celebration became a tool for social commentary.
The history of the cruise is a story of competing public narratives.
It really is. You had the elite, predominantly white, mystic crew of Comus, founded in 1856.
Right, and they institutionalized the grand, expensive floats.
And the highly secretive, exclusionary society balls. And they would toss cheap glass beads down to the crowds below them.
Very hierarchical.
But then, in 1909, African Americans founded the Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club.
And their method of parading was an act of profound, calculated satire.
Exactly. Instead of throwing cheap, mass-produced trinkets from a distance, the Zulu crew handed out hand-painted coconuts.
Which is such a brilliant detail.
They took an everyday natural object and elevated it into a highly coveted, painstakingly crafted piece of art.
Yeah.
By doing so, they were actively mocking the exclusionary pageantry of the elite white crews.
While simultaneously reclaiming and subverting the deeply racist caricatures that society projected onto them.
They turned the parade route into a platform for subversive theater.
Which forces us to look at how these hybrid cultures express their complex identities, not just visually or sonically, but through taste.
Oh, the food. The culinary traditions engineered at these festivals are just as layered as the music or the parades.
Let's break down gumbo because I think it is the ultimate metaphor for this whole phenomenon.
It really is, because the word itself derives from the Bantu word for okra, kingombo.
Right, and enslaved Africans brought okra across the Atlantic, and its mucilaginous properties act as the fundamental thickening agent for the stew,
But then you introduce the roux.
which is a classic foundational French culinary technique of browning flour and fat over heat.
And finally, you combine those two massive culinary pillars with the indigenous spices and local Gulf Coast seafood.
The shrimp, the crab.
I was thinking about this, and gumbo completely shatters the melting pot metaphor. I actually despise the melting pot analogy.
Because it implies everything loses its shape.
Exactly. It implies that every ingredient melts down, loses its original shape, and becomes one bland, homogenized soup. Gumbo is not a melting pot. It is an ecosystem.
An ecosystem. That distinction is vital.
Because the African okra, the European roux, and the Gulf Coast shrimp, they do not dissolve into each other.
No, you can still taste each one.
They each maintain their historical integrity, their distinct flavor profiles, and their unique textures. But they mechanically rely on each other within the pot to create a completely new, hybrid American flavor.
A flavor that just wouldn't exist without all three holding their ground.
This raises an important question, though, doesn't it?
It does. As these highly specific, culturally encoded dishes and traditions become famous and scale up for mass consumption, we crash headfirst into the tension between authenticity and commercialization.
Right.
When you go to a massive regional festival and find a corporate-sponsored gumbo cook-off where the food is gamified, tweaked for mass appeal, and judged by tourists, does that commodify and strip the heritage of its meaning?
Or does it democratize it by inviting an entirely new audience to the table?
We are right back to the deep-fried butter question.
We are. Is scaling up for a public audience selling out your culture? Or is it the ultimate survival tactic?
Well, the evidence points to survival. And this specific tension-navigating hybridity and massive public consumption leads us naturally to the mechanics of the broader immigrant experience in America.
How do massive diasporas negotiate blending into American culture while simultaneously fighting to ensure their ancestral homes are not forgotten?
We see this visibility tactic deployed constantly with European ethnic festivals.
Take Oktoberfest.
Perfect example.
It originated as a highly specific Bavarian tradition celebrating a royal wedding and the local agricultural harvest. But once it took root in the American Midwest, it morphed into a massive cultural staple.
Incorporating modern craft beer movements and, you guessed it, carnival rides.
Or look at the Irish celebrating St. Patrick's Day, or the Italian feast of San Gennaro in the streets of New York.
We often forget how fiercely political the early days of those parades were.
They weren't just block parties.
No, not at all. When Irish and Italian immigrants arrived in the 19th and early 20th centuries, they faced intense systemic discrimination.
They were often confined to specific tenements and shut out of civic life.
Right. So marching a patron saint through the main thoroughfares of a city, or flooding the avenues in a massive sea of green, those were calculated public statements of visibility.
By occupying the streets, they were declaring to the establishment, "We are here, our numbers are vast, and we claim the right to exist in this space."
And that mechanism of claiming physical space is just as vital today. We see it vividly in Hispanic and Latino festivals.
Cinco de Mayo is a prime example.
Yes, historically it commemorates the 1862 Battle of Puebla, where outgunned Mexican forces defeated the French army.
But interestingly, it is a relatively minor regional holiday in Mexico.
Right, but in the United States, it was seized upon by Mexican-American communities as a powerful unifying tool for political activism and transnational solidarity.
It functions as a negotiated space for a dual identity.
Exactly. But perhaps the most mechanically complex and visually striking example of claiming space is Dia de los Muertos.
The Day of the Dead.
Yes. This festival requires participants to reconcile vastly different cosmologies.
You have the blending of pre-Columbian Nahua and Aztec cyclical views of life, death, and rebirth.
Seamlessly merged with the Catholic observance of All Souls' Day.
And the sensory details of Dia de los Muertos are engineered to facilitate this connection, like the ofrenda,
The multi-tiered altar.
built specifically to welcome back the souls of the deceased. It is covered in cempasúchil vibrant orange marigolds.
And the mechanism there is deeply sensory.
It is. The pungent, distinct scent of the marigolds is traditionally believed to act as an olfactory beacon, guiding the spirits back to the world of the living.
I love that concept of an olfactory beacon.
And then you have the ubiquitous, iconic imagery of La Catrina, the elegantly dressed female skeleton.
Created by the artist Jose Guadalupe Posada.
Right. He created her as a direct satire. He was mocking Mexicans who were abandoning their indigenous roots to adopt European aristocratic pretensions.
The skeleton in the fancy French hat.
Exactly. It's a mechanical reminder that underneath the wealth and the lace, we all share the exact same fate.
That's brilliant.
But I have to ask, how do festivals like Dia de los Muertos or San Gennaro manage the friction of being a deeply exclusive, intimate cultural ritual for insiders, while simultaneously operating as an open public block party, where outsiders are wandering around eating street food?
It requires a highly delicate balance, sure. But essentially, deploying these public parades and massive altars are acts of aggressive cultural diplomacy.
Like cultural diplomacy.
Yes, by choosing to claim physical space in city streets, by building a massive ofrenda in a public park, or by marching a brass band down a main avenue, these communities refuse to be invisible.
They are actively inviting the outsider to witness their humanity.
Their complex grief and their radical joy. It is a forced invitation for cross-cultural empathy.
Because it becomes significantly harder to dehumanize or legislate against a community when you are standing in their neighborhood, sharing their food, and feeling the vibration of their music in your own chest.
Exactly. You are part of the ecosystem in that moment.
So what does this all mean? If we synthesize this entire journey we've been on, from the deep, earth-shaking, cyclical vibrations of the powwow drum to the disciplined, intergenerational livestock rings of the county fair,
To the subversive, defiant joy of a Mardi Gras parade or an Irish jig.
Dr. Biswas is ultimately arguing that folk festivals are the democratic rhythm of America.
They are the vital physical arenas where history escapes the confines of a dusty textbook. It is physically embodied, tasted, and consumed.
The festival is the laboratory where we constantly negotiate who we are.
Precisely.
So the next time you are walking through a local festival, dodging strollers and deciding which food truck to try, I want you to remember that you aren't just eating food or buying crafts.
You are actively plugging into 250 years of collective cultural survival.
But before we wrap up, Dr. Biswas briefly mentions a shift at the very end of the book that left me with a brand new concept to ponder, and I want to leave you with it too.
The inevitable transition into the digital age.
Right. As we move beyond America's 250th anniversary, how will the deeply physical, fiercely sensory nature of these festivals translate into our increasingly virtual world?
We spend vast portions of our lives online now, in digital spaces and virtual realities.
Can a line of code ever truly replicate the complex historical scent of simmering gumbo?
Or can a virtual space replicate the communal shared taste of pan de muerto?
Or that undeniable physical vibration of a brass band hitting you right in the chest?
It's a profound existential question for the archivist.
Will the folk festivals of the future figure out how to evolve into a completely new, unwritten hybrid of code and culture?
Or is physical bodily presence the one piece of data we simply cannot digitize?
Whatever happens, the next time you smell that powdered sugar and see the neon lights of the Ferris wheel spinning in the dark, remember, you're not just stepping out of reality for the night. You're stepping into the archive.